So this is where we had left last time. We discussed the three I's: intangibility, inconsistency, inseparability. And today we are going to cover inventory. We're going to talk about what inventory is and how that's unique for services, how that's different for services as compared to goods or products. So if we talk about products, what does inventory mean? Inventory is basically related to storage of goods, whether it's storage of raw materials or it's storage of finished goods. So in case of products, you can think about, you can create a demand. You can think about how much demand your product is going to have, and then based on that you can produce millions of items. Let's say you produce 1 million item or 1 million units of whatever good you're producing, because you think that your 1 million products are going to be sold in whatever specific time. So you can produce them and then store them until really the consumers buy all of those 1 million products. So that's what we can do for inventory. Um, so basically products can be inventoried and stored. And even the most perishable products, the ones that can go bad within a few days, you can still store them, right? You can store them for a few days. You just have to make more arrangements for those products, perishable products. Maybe deep freeze them, or refrigerate them, or make some different some specific arrangements for those perishable products, but you can still store them. However, for services, these cannot be stored, and these cannot be produced in advance in anticipation of customer needs or demands. You cannot store them in inventory until purchased. That doesn't make any sense with services. You cannot store, let's say, a service, an airline service, and you say that I'm going to store this service and then later on people can get on the plane. That doesn't make any sense. So when we talk about inventory for products, on the right hand side, there are some costs associated with it, because you have to store them in some areas. You have to store them in a building. You have to pay the rent or whatever, depending on, as we said about perishable products, whatever the requirement is. If we have to refrigerate these perishable products, or deep freeze them, or whatever is to be done with those perishable products or the other products, non-perishable products, we still have some carrying costs involved for the products. Now with services, these inventory carrying costs are related to idle production capacity. Because you cannot store the services, there are no carrying costs associated, there are no inventory costs associated, really the inventory costs associated with services, but the costs that are that we call the inventory carrying costs for services, these are related to idle production capacity. Now, what does idle production capacity mean? This occurs when the service provider is available, but there is no demand. So it's similar to what the inventory for products is. You need inventory, you need to spend money on inventory only when there's no demand, or kind of when, maybe it's not the appropriate thing to say that there is no demand for products, but it's, you store them until they are bought by the customers, right? You have to mass produce. You produce them, you store them, and now whenever one by one the customers are buying your products, until the last product is bought by the consumers, you have to um, put them somewhere. There's an inventory cost associated with it. Similarly, for services, there is a cost associated with the services when the service provider is available but there is no demand. So that's the link that they have created here with the inventory. So we need to understand what idle production capacity is. So for example, if there is a hairstylist, there's a hair salon, she's opened this nice store, they have all these necessary equipment, whatever they need, they have the building, they have to pay the rent, they have to pay for the electricity, for water, and so on. So they already have set up the whole business. But if she's alone in the store and does not have any customers, that's what idle production capacity is. The production capacity is idle at this point of time, and that's what we associate with inventory carrying costs. So the inventory carrying costs for services are the costs that the service provider has to pay at the time when there is no consumer demand, when there's no consumer coming in. They still have to pay all the costs associated with the services that they are providing, but no money is coming in. So that's called idle production capacity. Similarly, for movie theaters, the movie guys have to run the movie. Even if they are, like in this picture, we can see there are only like 6 people sitting in that theater, but they still have to run the movie at the time that they have said that they are going to run the movie. And there are so many costs, there are so many vacant seats in there, which basically means that the service provider is available because there are so many seats vacant in there, but there is no demand. The consumers are not in there, but they still have to spend the the same amount of money. If it was full, if the theater was full, it would have costed them the same amount of money as it's costing them now with just 4 people watching the movie. So that's what inventory carrying costs are for services, and that's what idle production capacity means. So again, occurs when the service provider is available, but there is no demand. Now, the costs associated with the inventory of services can be low costs, and it can go from low costs to high costs, which would depend on these costs would depend on the cost of employees and equipment, right? The cost that they have to the money that they have to bear based on how many employees do they have, or how skilled or unskilled the employees they have, and on the basis of the equipment. So you can see on the left, the low cost here is real estate agency and hair salon. Basically, these are, they don't have many employees, they don't have a very big expensive equipment as compared to, if you see on the extreme right, the high cost for airlines or hospitals. They need those equipment, they need those airplanes to move from one place to another. Even if they have one person sitting in the plane, they have to run it, they have to go, and then they have to bear the cost of not having the other consumers on the vacant seats in the airplane. So the same way with hospital. So this kind of shows you a bar going from low cost to high cost, like real estate agency and hair salon. Then a little higher would be insurance company, a little higher would be dry cleaner, auto repair center, restaurant, hotel, amusement park, and the highest cost in here in the picture is airline or hospital. So here you need to do your activity number 3 for the course. What you need to write in here is what do you mean by these 4 I's of services. So just write them in your own words. What do they mean to you? And then write examples for each, but make sure that you do not use the ones that we have already discussed in the video. Write your own examples for each of these I's. So pause, do it, and then come back. All right, so next what we're going to talk about is service continuum. So if you think about products and services, or goods and services as we call them, there are some goods which are like pure goods. Okay, there's nothing service about it. There's no service about it. It's just pure. It's just a pure good. For example, a piece of furniture, let's say a chair. A chair is a pure good, right? It's pure good. And then there are services which are pure services, which means that there is no product in it. There's no goods in that service involved. For example, if you think about a psychiatrist, that's a pure service. So we have these two um, points. That is, one is good dominant, for example, chair, and the other point, which is service dominant, which is the psychiatrist. So the service continuum gives us a range from the good dominant to the service dominant offerings that are available in the marketplace, which in other words means that there does not have to be a pure good and a pure service. There can be a mixture of both in between. So there's of a range from tangibility to intangibility. So you can start, if it's a complete tangible thing, a tangible offering, it can be a pure good. And if it's a complete intangible offering, it can be a pure service. But there are a lot of products available in the market which are not completely tangible or intangible. They're kind of a mixture of both. So that's what a service continuum gives us. It gives us a range from the tangible to the intangible, or good dominant to service dominant offerings that are available in the marketplace. And we'll look at an example for that. So on the left hand side, we see is pure tangible good. On the right hand side, we have pure intangible service. For example, salt, a pure tangible good, right? There's no service attached to it. Now, if you go a little further on the continuum towards service, you see the automobiles are, I don't know if you've heard this before, automobiles are generally treated as a service, even though they offer product. They offer the tangible cars or whatever you're buying from that automobile store. And there is some part of service involved with it, because whenever you buy a car, there's always services involved around that product. Car or Jeep or whatever you want, a truck or whatever automobile product you buy, there's always service attached to it. Next on the continuum can be a tailored, let's say a tailor-made suit. So you get the tailoring done, which is intangible, and then you get the suit, you get the dress, you get the suit, you get the shirt, whatever you getting made by the tailor, you get that as a tangible product. Next, restaurant, you get it's again further on the continuum towards the service, where you can see that you have the product, which is the tangible offering, which is food, but at the same time you treat it as a service, and restaurant is a part of service industry, because the main thing that you go out to a restaurant to eat is you go for the service part of it. You go for a server, a waiter serving you food. You go for the ambience. You go for whatever kind of feeling you get in that restaurant. That's the main or we can say 50-50. Food is also important, but at the same time the environment, the service part of it is also equally important for a restaurant business. Next can be an ad agency, which is giving you is creating an advertisement for you. It's again more towards the service and less towards the goods. And the last on the extreme right hand side towards pure service would be education, would be teaching, for example. So you're providing teaching to students who are basically customers, and what tangible thing are you getting or the customers getting? Nothing tangible. Whatever they get at the end is intangible. The knowledge, the experience, all of it is intangible that they get. So that can be counted as a pure service. So going back to service continuum, this is a range from the tangible to the intangible or goods dominant to service dominant offerings available in the marketplace. And this gives you several examples of several product dominated or good dominated offering and service dominated offering. And you can see how it starts with salt, then in the middle you can see fast food restaurant. On the right hand side, extreme right, you can see teaching as a pure service, or nursing as a pure service, or theater as a pure service, because you really don't get any tangible um, product to hold in your hand with these services. Okay, so these are the two bases of services, or we can say classifications of services. We have equipment-based services and people-based services. And as the names suggest, equipment-based is majorly based on the equipment, and people-based is majorly based on people. That is, the people play an important role in there. And we'll talk about the equipment base first, and we're just going to quickly talk about this. The first one you can see under equipment base is automated services. So you have these ATMs or automated car washes or online brokerages. These are all fully automated. That's self-service. There's nobody present in there. You just go in and you just take the service on your own and you're done. The second one is operated by relatively unskilled operators. You do need equipment in there, but you also need some unskilled labor is fine. You can use them, for example, for motion picture theaters or dry cleaners or taxis. You need to have the equipment, but you can have some unskilled operators to perform those equipment. And the last one is operated by skilled operators. Again, equipment is important, like electric utilities or airlines or computer networks, but these are to be operated by skilled operators. Then the next one is people-based services. Again, as I said, the people play the major role in these kind of services. First one, unskilled labor like lawn care, skilled labor like appliance repair, and professionals like management consultants, accountants, or lawyers. So these are mainly people-based. You need people to perform those services for the customers. Okay, so these are two main classifications of service: equipment-based and people-based. Now, what we're going to talk about here is how do consumers evaluate goods and services? So on the left hand side, we can see easy to evaluate. On the right hand side, we can see difficult to evaluate. So it goes from easy to evaluate to difficult to evaluate, and you can see easy to evaluate are most products and difficult to evaluate are most services. And then you have something in between. The purple in there you see is something as a mixture of products and services, and we're going to talk about these. So if you look at the products, these are clothing, jewelry, furniture, etc. These are high in search properties, and these are easy to evaluate because these are high in search properties. What does that mean? That means that you can evaluate these before you make a purchase. You can evaluate clothing, jewelry, furniture, houses before you make a purchase. So these are called high in search properties, and because of that, these are easy to evaluate. Next, which is a mixture of products and services, these are high in experience properties. What does that mean? That means that you need to experience these in order to evaluate them. That is, only after purchase or during consumption you can evaluate these services. For example, a vacation or a haircut. You need to go in there, you need to go for a vacation in order to evaluate if the quality of the service is good or not, if the quality of vacation is good or not. You, for a haircut, you need to get the haircut done before you can evaluate. So if after purchase or during consumption, while you are experiencing that, you get to evaluate if about the quality of the services. And the last one towards the right, which is the most difficult to evaluate, these are high in credence properties. What does that mean? That it may be impossible to evaluate these services even after purchase and consumption. For example, a root canaling or a auto repair service or a medical diagnosis. You won't even know if they did a good job or not, because probably you won't even know about what they did and what they were supposed to do. So it may be sometimes impossible to evaluate these services that are high in credence properties even after you've made the purchase, or even after you've consumed them. Okay. Now, these are we're going to discuss these 5 dimensions of service quality. So how do you judge the quality of a service? If you cannot evaluate these services before you've made the purchase, you can only evaluate the services after purchase or during consumption. How do you judge the quality of the service before making the purchase? Okay, how do you do that? How do you decide which service provider to go to? Because you don't know how they're going to end up being unless you have really purchased their services. So you can use these 5 dimensions to judge the quality of the service providers or the services. Okay, and we're going to discuss them one by one. So the first one is reliability, which is the ability to perform the promised service dependably and accurately. So if the service provider was able to do what they had promised that they're going to do, that's a reliable service provider. For example, if you're a customer of an airline service, you're going to ask the question, is my flight on time? And the answer to that is going to create a service quality judgment, an evaluation in your mind. So that's reliability. Now, next one is tangibility, and we've talked about this, tangibilizing the intangibles, which is appearance of physical facilities, equipment, personnel, and communication materials. Are the gate, the plane, the baggage area clean or not? So based on that, you're going to create a judgment for that airline service provider. The third one is responsiveness, willingness to help customers and provide prompt service. Whether they are responsive or not. You've asked a question, are they ready to answer your question or not? That's responsiveness. Are the flight attendants willing to answer my questions? The fourth one is assurance, that is knowledge and courtesy of employees and their ability to convey trust and confidence. Now, in services, because you cannot evaluate them unless you have purchased or you are consuming them while you are consuming them, and that's why it's important to build a trust factor or a confidence with the customers that yes, it's going to be all right, you're going to do everything fine. So that's something that's important, and assurance is important in service quality. So knowledge and courtesy of employees and their ability to convey trust and confidence. The question you may ask is, are the ticket counter attendants, flight attendants, and pilots knowledgeable about their jobs? So you might have seen, if you have traveled in an airplane, you go in there, and then after some time, the pilot is like, oh, I'm the pilot of this airline. We're going to take this much time to reach. We are here right now on this altitude, and so on. What they're trying to do there is kind of build a trust with you, with the customer, so that because the customer is not going to know how the pilot is, how the service is going to be, it's kind of creating that assurance with the customers that you're in safe hands. This is me. I'm going to, this is kind of trying to give a human touch to the service that the customers are taking. And the last one is empathy, which is caring, individualized attention provided to customers. Do the employees determine if I have special seating, meal, baggage, transfer, or rebooking needs? So empathy is also important in services because, again, you need that. You need to see whether these guys are empathizing with me or not. If they're not empathizing with me, probably I'm not in the right hands, because you don't know until you're going to experience them. So these are the 5 dimensions of service quality: reliability, tangibility, responsiveness, assurance, and empathy. Next, we're going to talk about the marketing mix components of services. So if you remember, the marketing mix components of products are 4 P's, which you can see here as well: product, price, place, and promotion. Now for services, we add 3 more P's, and we call it 7 P's of services, where we add people, process, and physical evidence in the marketing mix components. So product, place, and promotion remain the same as that in products. Like the 4 P's we discussed before, those remain the same: product, place, and promotion. What can be a little different is pricing for services, and that is related to the idle production capacity that we talked before. So we are going to talk about the rest of the P's. We're not going to talk about product, place, and promotion, but we're going to talk about price, people, physical evidence, and process. So the first one is price. What we need to understand when we're talking about pricing for services is the off-peak pricing. That means that the service providers charge different prices during different times of the day or during different days of the week to reflect variations in demand for the service. For example, if you've seen this, if you watch movies, you will know this, that the movie ticket prices, as we can see here, general admission 8, matinees, that is shows starting before 5:30, and evenings, that is shows starting at or after 5:30, you have $11. So all the matinees are $8, and the evenings are almost all are $11. So that change in pricing is because that's the way the demand for the movies work. Generally, people don't come in during, before 5:30 for movies, and that's why the price is lower there. And generally, people come more for movies in the evenings, and that's why they have changed the price, they have increased the price during evenings. And this is called off-peak pricing, charging different prices to reflect variations in demand for the service. So that's a little different for services as compared to products. The next P is people, and people are important in services because we discussed that there are two classifications of services. One is completely people based, which means that people play a very important role in how customers are going to perceive the quality of the service to be. And that is the reason that we need to conduct internal marketing. What does that mean? Internal marketing is a notion that a service organization must focus on its employees, or as we call them, internal market, before successful programs can be directed at customers. So unless your employees are happy, unless your employees are satisfied with your organization, they are not going to make the end customer happy. So you treat your employees as your market first, and you say, this is our internal market. these employees are the ones we have to satisfy first. Only then they can pass it on to the end customer. So if they are happy, the customer is going to see that happiness on their face. If they are not happy, the customer is going to see that non-happiness on the employee's face. And that's why internal marketing is important. We want to market to our own employees first. So customer experience management is another term. CEM is the process of managing the entire customer experience with the company. We want to create a plan. We want to create a plan uh, for the customers to have a wonderful experience in our organization, and that's what this customer experience management is about. Now, the sixth P is physical evidence, which is basically, again, the tangibility, the tangibilizing the intangibles concept, which means the appearance of the environment in which the service is delivered and where the firm and customer interact can influence the customer's perception of the service. So it's basically that tangibilizing the intangibles thing that is very important in services, and that's why it gets added as one of the marketing mix elements. The last P is process. And we talk about process because in services, we cannot separate the process from the delivery or from the consumption of the services by the customer. So for example, the process of manufacturing a product like, let's say, toothpaste, uh, you're going to, the process involved in the manufacturing has no involvement for the customer. The customer doesn't have to see and doesn't get to see the process with which a toothpaste is manufactured. But the customer does get to see when a hairstylist or the hairstylist is styling the hair of the customer. So the in the process of providing the service to the customer is also involved because it's happening in front of the customer, and that's why process is important in services, which refers to the actual procedures, mechanisms, and flow of activities by which the service is created and delivered. So if the hairstylist is really messy and keeps spilling, let's say, water on the face of the customer, or keeps, throwing things down, or, is whatever the hairstylist or the service provider is doing at that time during the process of providing the service, everything is being noticed by the customer, and that's why process is important. Now, again, capacity management related to the idle production capacity involves integrating the service component of the marketing mix with efforts to influence consumer demand. So we'll try to understand this with the help of an example, with the help of a few examples, in fact. So the first one on the right hand side, sorry, on the left hand side that you see is the lunch specials available Monday to Thursday at $14.9. So what this tells us is that Monday to Thursday during the lunchtime, they don't get many customers, and that's why they want to they want to offer their services, their products, their lunch specials at a lower price. And that's because they want to influence consumer demand. They want people to come more during Mondays to Thursdays because they are not getting many people at that time. However, from Friday to Sunday, they already have more demand, and that's why they're not offering anything special. The same for the next picture that we see, Wednesday special, white bread, $1.99. And this you can see in many grocery stores. They keep Wednesday specials because people do not go for grocery shopping in the middle of the week. And on the right hand side, you can say $5 Tuesdays, all movies, all ages, all days. And then you also see their Tuesday food specials over there. That's also because people do not go to movies on a weekday. And just right after Monday is Tuesday, and people don't want to go to movies on that particular day. And to influence the demand over there, they are given these offers. All right, so these were the 7 P's of services: product, price, place, and promotion, just like the 4 P's. And then in addition to that, we have people, process, and physical evidence. And that completes our chapter. What we talked about in this chapter was 4 unique elements of services, which are the 4 I's. Then how services differ and how they can be classified. So this is the equipment-based and the people-based classification, and how services differ from products. We also talked about how consumers purchase and evaluate services. So we talked about the 5 dimensions of services as well. And then we talked about marketing mix elements of services, the 7 P's. And that completes our chapter.